Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to our Intelligent Document Processing Virtual Summit. My name is Sally Fletcher. I'm here as a Managing Editor for SSON Digital, and I'm delighted to be hosting this session today. So before I get started with our first session, a couple of notices on the console that you see before you. We do have all of our speakers here live, so make the most of that. We've got a Q&A box at the bottom and a chat where you can post your questions to them, and I would really encourage you to do so. Our members at SSON are always so good at getting involved and making these sessions really, really useful. So don't be backwards about coming forwards and post your questions, and we've got some time reserved to answer them. There's also a resource centre at the bottom. If you click on this, you can find out more about our sponsor here, Adlib, and find out a little bit more about who they are, what they do, and a webinar that we're running with them next month. And there's also a documents tab here. I've got a copy of the slides, so don't worry, you don't have to take screenshots. You can sit back, relax, and enjoy the presentation. What's next? There's also some emojis. It is very difficult presenting online. We can't hear you, we can't see you, but we love to know that you are out there. So please do give our speakers a thumbs up or a smiley if you really agree with their point. I don't think there's an option for a sad face, but we've never had to have one of those anyway. There's also our polling questions. We really do encourage you to participate in the polls because thank you, and it helps us with driving the conversation, and it helps us with tailoring the presentation to suit you. And I am going to launch our first poll now. We'd love to just get a sense of who you are in the audience. If you are collecting your CPE points and this session is eligible, to qualify, you must take part in the polling questions, attend at least 2 of the presentations today, and then answer the post-event survey. Click yes for CPE points. And the CPEs are only eligible for those in North America. I do apologise, but please do take part in those polls if you want to qualify for those CPE points. Okay, a quick note on our agenda for today. So the session that you've all tuned in for, AI outcomes start upstream, why cleaning document pipelines beats turning prompts. That's followed by 3 fantastic case studies about how to apply IDP. First up, we're going to be looking at transforming sick leave submissions with AI-powered IDP, and that's with Takeda. Then I'm going to be speaking to DHL Global Forwarding, and they're going to be looking at improving customer experience and saving costs with IDP and AI, and they've been using it in the customs setting. Last but not least, we're speaking to one of our lovely contributors, Vladimiro Ferreira, and he's got a case study about his work with IDP at SEG Automotive on streamlining indirect ordering processes. Okay. So who are our speakers this morning? We've got not 1, not 2, but 3 fantastic speakers for today's session. First up, and this is, I think, maybe your 3rd or 4th time presenting with us, Chris. So lovely to have you back on the virtual stage. We have Chris Hubb, who is a CEO for Adlib Software. Chris is a growth-focused tech and SaaS executive with a proven track record in scaling enterprise software companies backed by private equity and venture capital. He's known for building strong teams and driving value through operational efficiency, revenue growth, and product innovation. And prior to joining Adlib, Chris was CEO at Base 64 AI and Chief Strategy and Growth Officer at Tungsten Automation, where he led strategy, product, AI, marketing, and partnerships. He's joined by Anthony Vigliotti, the CPO at Adlib Software. Anthony has 20+ years in business workflow and IDP. He started in manufacturing at Xerox, designing components for manufacture and earning a patent in the process. And his work now focuses on turning unstructured content into reliable, compliant, AI-ready data that accelerates real-world outcomes in regulated industries. And last but not least, he's joined by Vaibhav Bansal, the VP for Everest Group. Vaibhav has been associated with the firm for 3.5 years and leads research and advisory across automation and AI, including, of course, IDP, agentic AI, everybody's favorite topic, Gen AI, enterprise AI platforms, RPA, process intelligence, and process orchestration. So 3 incredibly well-qualified panelists to lead us today. I'm going to end this poll and share the results with our audience, and I'm going to go ahead and share our slides, and let's get going on our presentation. Okay, can everybody see these okay? Yeah.
We can, just needs to go into presentation mode. And I think it'll be the perfect.
Perfect. Okay, over to you. Let's just, sorry, before I hand over to you, let's just have a look at our poll results, Chris. So I think it's really interesting to see that messy, unstructured content and data is the top barrier to realizing AI. Is that kind of what you see a lot with your customers there at Adlib?
It is, and I think that's why you're seeing a resurgence in intelligent document processing is to, address head on that messy, unstructured content. So that way you're putting in, it's the good old garbage in, garbage out. So if you're, fixing the upstream activities around documents, ensuring that they're compliant, that it's validated data before you put it into an AI model or an AI app, then you can trust the outputs that much more. So not a surprise, and I think that's a perfect segue for what it is we're going to talk about this morning.
Yes, absolutely. Right, I'll go ahead and hand over to you.
All right. And it is great working with you again, Sally. It's always a pleasure. And we've got a great, session set up here for the next 30-ish minutes. So what I wanted to do is before we jump into more of a panel setup is to just provide some context for why I think we're seeing a resurgence of IDP in this current AI era. Most of us would agree we're in the early innings of this AI innovation supercycle. I firmly believe that the winners won't be the teams with the flashiest models, although you're hearing about that every day because these foundational model companies are leapfrogging each other on a daily basis, and that's great for the pace of innovation. But I think the winners are going to be the ones with the cleanest AI model inputs. And I think this is really the setup for IDP. So clean inputs will obviously result in accurate and trusted AI outputs. And as all of us are seeing, enterprise customers that are rushing to scale AI, they're discovering an old truth with new urgency, and that is that IDP is the gatekeeper of trusted data and is really the difference between hallucination and hard ROI. But let's go ahead and jump straight in. So within the state of AI in regulated industries, which is primarily where Adlib plays, I want to use two studies to frame today's panel discussion. The first study is Deloitte's 2025, so very recent Smart Manufacturing Survey. This survey really quantifies the impact that IDP and AI are having on scaling operations in regulated industries. This is manufacturing, but you can apply this to any regulated industry, financial services, insurance, banking. You can go down the list. But while this is manufacturing, again, concepts apply to any industry. The second study, though, is very broad and it does hit every industry head on. And this is MIT's 2025 State of AI in Business, which many of you have already heard about. It is definitely making its way on the circuit. And it really, I would say, it explains why most AI pilots are missing delivery on the bottom line impact. And so I'll give a few thoughts on that. But as we step into the next slide around Gen AI divide, the MIT study really started to look at one, a few hundred publicly traded companies that are deploying AI. And they found that 95% of enterprise AI initiatives show no measurable P&L, profit and loss impact. Now, one of the things to be mindful of, especially in this era of continuous clickbait, is that MIT pulled this data from public company S1s, quarterly earnings reports, 10Ks, other SEC filings. If it was written that a company was investing in AI, yet nothing was noted on return on investment, MIT considered it no measurable impact. So part of that 95%. I think most of you can already start to see that there could be projects that simply haven't delivered the intended impact yet. So while a lot of people were quick to say 95% of projects are failing because it's an attention grabber, that's not exactly true. But it does get to the point of we're early in the cycle, adoption is high, transformational impact at this point is low. It could just be that these projects need time to prove themselves out, to be documented, to have that P&L impact. So I would reserve sort of judgment on that 95% of projects are failing. A second interesting point, though, in this MIT data is that external partnerships, it was pretty clear in the data, are successfully deployed twice as often as internal builds, which suggests collaboration is the fastest path to scale. The next piece that's really interesting in this data is that you get into exactly why the pilots are struggling. And this gets to one of our, our only polling question to date, and I think it aligns very nicely with it. And when you do dig into the MIT data, the top reasons for challenges, again, are not surprising. And with my Adlib hat on as a solution provider, we can only influence executive sponsorship, change management. However, we control, not just influence, but control the second most cited reason, which is output quality. This points to the need, as everyone here identified as the number one concern, clean data. Data that is accurately captured, classified, extracted, everything that goes into IDP, but and this is where we focus at Adlib, is really on converting and standardizing hundreds of different file types that organizations process into standardized inputs, all while governing those documents. So think various version controls, security, the provenance of the very essence of the document. And through that lens, it's really easy to see how IDP serves as this AI accelerant by ensuring highly accurate and validated document pipelines, which enhances, to get to the headline of this session, enhances prompt tuning. That is what inevitably leads to greater AI output accuracy. And so within the highly regulated industries, we can turn to a second survey, which is Deloitte's 2025. And what we find here, and this is more on the operational insights and impacts of AI in regulated industries, despite all the current challenges with scaling AI, this survey found the commitment to AI is undeniable. 78% of manufacturers allocate more than 20% of their improvement spend to AI. Even more telling, though, is 75% expect those budgets to increase further, and zero respondents expect a decrease. Zero. So even though there are challenges, the funding continues to be put towards scaling AI and overcoming the current challenges that they're having. So those investments specifically in the Deloitte survey is going to improve data accuracy. Again, the very essence of what IDP can help with. Now, as we move forward, what we're looking at in the survey here is that there's a couple key takeaways. First, regulated industries advance across a maturity curve by investing in foundational technology like intelligent document processing to do the capture, the connection, and the analyzation of operational and enterprise data. But second, enterprises are prioritizing investments in automation and data, not one or the other, but both. And that's exactly where obviously all of us in IDP plays. And this, again, is the tailwind for IDP resurgence and the accelerated growth that all of us are seeing. All right, to end this on the next slide, this is why I'm very happy that Everest continues to partner with Adlib. They've always got great data, and I look forward to hearing sort of the details behind this. But 55% of CXOs and business leaders across enterprises believing that through 26-27, access to high quality and trusted data is a top factor in the success of their AI programs. Aligns exactly, Body, with what I'm seeing with the conversations I'm having across CEO board level, but excited to sort of hear about the details as we move forward. So Sally, back over to you to help facilitate the panel.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's super interesting. And it definitely reflects what we're hearing at SSON. Not just that, maybe not that people aren't getting the ROI, but they need the ROI really quickly. Like they expect 12 to 18 months the ROI to be there. So, yeah, I think that data is so crucial to getting it right, for sure. So, yeah, as you said, let's kind of kickstart to our discussion. So, we talked about kind of AI adoption, and I know that your take, Chris, on AI adoption is not transformation, and that messy document pipelines store ROI faster than weak models. Can you unpack that a little bit for us?
Sure. So there's a lot to that, but I think a number of executives think that adopting AI is transformation. my view is that it's not. Transformation is when AI changes outcomes at scale, not the
Yeah.
mere motion of procuring a tool or performing an experiment. So you have to actually do the work, as they say. And with AI, the biggest barrier, and I think we're already laying the foundation for this, isn't the model, it's the inputs. If your document pipelines are, as you said, Sally, messy, that means that they're missing context, there's inconsistent formats, or maybe they're just like not machine readable. The model, then, the AI model is going to spend time fixing errors instead of creating value. And for me, an AI model and creating value is generating insights, making recommendations, providing solutions. Like that's where we need the AI models focused on. IDB can handle sort of the inputs. And that's why I believe 95% of AI pilots are being challenged right now, which gets to if you don't start with clean, trusted documents, you can tune prompts all day and you'll still fail to see ROI.
Yeah, definitely. And Vaibhav, I'd love to bring you into the conversation. From your perspective, does the research back this all up? How common is it for AI projects to stall because of those unstructured or messy inputs?
Yeah, no, thanks, Sally. I think the research, actually backs it up very strongly, right? So I think Chris talked about the MIT study where 95% of pilots are not able to deliver measurable business value, right? Our own research at Everest Group shows that, 70% of AI pilots never even make it to production. At least that's what we've seen in the last couple of years. Now, again, there could be a number of reasons behind that. From one of our recent surveys, which we conducted with these enterprise leaders, right? So what we found out was, especially for early stage enterprises, 85% of them, they are not the biggest challenge or one of the top challenges which they're facing is with the poor data quality or data availability, which is not helping them achieve AI readiness or actually scaling up AI. So yes, in that sense, data readiness or messy data that consistently ranks among the top 3 or 4 causes of AI project failures, right? There could be other causes, right? There are concerns around ROI and data security and other factors, but data readiness is definitely, or data quality is one of the top 3. Now, on this topic of messy data or what is also sometimes confused with unstructured data, I just wanted to mention that I mean both are slightly different, right? Today in intelligent document processing, as we track the data, right, almost 40% of adoption is actually happening on unstructured data. Right. And with the evolution of technology, availability of large language models and so on, dealing with unstructured data has become much more feasible, right? So that's not the biggest challenge anymore. I think what we are talking about here is the broken data or poorly managed, document pipelines. And I think Chris talked about some issues, but if I have to elaborate them further, inconsistent formats or the documents are outdated, the scans are of poor quality, the metadata is missing, the schemas are not very consistent, or the data is not labeled, right? So there could be a number of issues. Now, because of these problems, what is happening is 70–80% of the time which is spent in an IDP workflow happens in solving for these issues or pre-processing and making the data clean, which is actually hugely inefficient. Ideally, all these problems should be solved upstream, right at the source, right, where the data is getting generated. And if that foundation itself is not there, then it doesn't matter, how good your model is. So that is what we are seeing as a part of our research and our conversations, which happen with different enterprises as well.
Yeah, definitely. It still seems like such a difficult task as well to get that clean data, one source of the truth. We see it time and time again. Let me post our second poll here, so we can have a look. And I'd love to know from you guys, our audience, where does your organization feel the most pain today in document processing? Is it ingesting diverse file types, as Vaibhav just mentioned, metadata and version control gaps, validation and audit readiness, or manual rework and human error? And if there are kind of, other big pain points that you are facing, put them in the chat or in the Q&A. We'd love to understand more about your challenges around IDP, and hopefully with these 3 experts, we can get some advice. I'll leave that up there for you to answer. And then I'll just go over to Anthony. I know you've been waiting patiently, Anthony. Thank you. And I'd love to get your perspective. I know that a lot of executives think that when they hear IDP, they think problem solved, we can do that. But when you look under the hood, where do enterprises really feel the pain first with IDP or OCR? And what blind spots do you see?
Yeah, great question, Sally, and great conversation so far. So I'm going to speak from my experience in talking with customers that have already been in the throes of trying to evaluate technology or have already deployed technology, which might not be yielding the results they expect. So what we hear largely is they have a data accuracy and trust concern. And just unpack both of those. Data accuracy is these are mission critical documents. They're the lifeblood of the organization. They're driving mission critical decisions, patient care, manufacturing decisions, and all of the things that have a high cost of getting wrong. And they just simply need these things to be more accurate. The second thing we hear is that the results are sometimes unpredictable. So you run similar documents through the same model and the same process, and you get varying results. So by the time we get to the conversation, the customers have already decided to throw some prompt tuning at it to try and test different varying models, and they get varying results. And I'm not suggesting that you can't improve the situation by those techniques, but what they sometimes largely ignore is the document itself. Is it a file format that's not compatible with large language models or AI technologies? Even if the AI tech stack says it can absorb this file type, the real question is it accurately processed? So what we are able to do in some cases is take a look at the documents and the file types and ready them for ingestion into an AI model or large language tech stack. And that's done through image cleanup, that's done through object detection, that's done by separating the image and the text layer. It's done by literally decomposing the document to smaller components such that the larger models have a better chance of success. All right, that's one area where you can improve. Now, on the data accuracy side, one of the things that we also ask and look at is that, once you get past, can the file type be ingested, and what's the most appropriate way to get that into your process, is to look at the file itself. What's in it. So there are files that have embedded pictures, CAD, objects that are embedded, charts, Visio workflow diagrams, and a whole host of things in between, such as handwriting and checkboxes. Okay. As you start processing these documents, the large language model and AI technologies have varying levels of success. So using an analogy or a metaphor, like when you were in school, your teacher didn't just give you the book and say, there's a test at the end of the year, be ready. The teacher said, here's chapter 1, here's chapter 2, there's going to be a quiz after each one. And what I think most customers struggle with is trying to get to the final test with the initial prompt, asking to process the entire document at once, instead of breaking down the document into smaller digestible areas where the AI and large language models can be successful. So that's another area of improvement. Instead of one large language model process doing one big task, you'd be better served by breaking that into smaller discrete items, tasking and prompting for those smaller discrete items in a chained model, and then stitching the results back together as required. Okay.
Yeah, no, definitely. That makes a lot of sense. And I was really struck by what you said about mission critical documents, because for an outsider like me, I kind of think, oh, it's a document, whatever. But of course, these documents are having huge impacts on the people that are working in the organization, the way the business is done, the revenue, the costs, errors that can cause both operational and reputational risk. The stakes are high. So it's really interesting to see how you guys are approaching that. And I've just kind of posted the results of the poll so we can have a look. Manual rework and human error and ingesting diverse file types are two kind of the big pain points that audience is facing. And I think, Anthony, those are two things that you covered. So that's great. Let's just kind of, I'm conscious of time, so I'll kind of go straight to our next question. And that's really, I suppose, a little bit around the kind of benchmarking. And Chris, I'm going to direct this question to you. If you are a CIO, a CTO, a COO, how should you be framing document transformation? Is it a cost efficiency play purely, or is it about growth or something else?
I think it's tempting to frame document transformation as cost efficiency, meaning fewer errors, faster processing times, reduced headcount in some instances, hopefully, contract support and not your FTEs, your employees. And I get that. but I think it misses the bigger picture. In regulated industries, documents, as you guys just sort of chatted about, are the data of record. They're absolutely critical. If you make those documents AI ready, you don't just save money. I think you create new growth levers. Think faster time to market, cleaner audits, improved customer experience. And each of those can translate into a revenue stream, whether that's a new product or premium pricing on existing products. So yes, efficiency is the entry point in most instances, but the reward is growth. It's early days, but what I'm seeing is CIOs, COs who treat document and data accuracy as a strategic growth lever are the ones moving quicker anyway from pilots to scaled impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And at Vaibhav, before you mentioned about a lot of these pilot projects never making it to reality or whatever the phrase is. And I'd love to just ask you a little bit more about that. You know, you're benchmarking across industries. What separates organizations that actually see measurable AI outcomes from those stuck in that perpetual pilot mode?
Yeah, Kelly, so that's a great question. And I think we have been looking into this very closely. And I think one data point which Chris already shared was around, respondents considering data readiness among the top three critical success factors. In fact, when we asked this question, 40% of CXOs, ranked this as the number one factor. So data readiness is a given. And when we say readiness, it also means a number of things, accuracy, completeness, consistency, timeliness and whatnot, right, about data. So that's probably one of the biggest, pieces of the entire puzzle. But then there are quite a few other success factors which we also see among organizations, right, who are able to do this successfully. And I'll talk about a few of them to, round this up. So one would be, clear definition of the success metrics, right? So we all talk about ROI not being met, but how many organizations actually went about, defining it well, what is the right measure of value which is going to come out of a particular IDP or an AI project, or what kind of productivity gains or top line growth is expected out of these initiatives. So that itself is missing in many cases. Second is about the overall org readiness, right? So now when you talk about readiness, data is one piece of it, but there is readiness from multiple other dimensions. For example, your process readiness, your talent or skills readiness, your tech readiness, right? So there are different aspects, and I think data is just one pillar. But even we see a lack of readiness whenever AI is not meeting its goals. And then there are a few other factors, like integrations with existing ecosystem, or not addressing risk associated with data security or with hallucinations properly, not having right explainability mechanisms. Last but not the least, I mean, one key insight, which we are having from these surveys and even from our conversations is AI projects or IDP projects tend to be more successful when you actually shift the focus away from just technology to business outcomes. And again, I think Chris touched upon this earlier as well, right? So doesn't matter, if you're using traditional AI or Gen AI or agentic AI, right? So the real impact will come when you start with the problem and work backwards, and not the other way around, right? So that's again one key observation which we have on AI projects which are doing better or which were able to deliver successful outcomes.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And Chris, from your perspective in Adlib, how do you guys help with making sure people aren't kind of, moving them from the pilot stage to, having this IDP embedded and useful and getting the benefits?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, you can't do any of this without executive sponsorship, without, programmatic budget, and then the real work starts, but you can't do it without that. So if the question is around like, how do we, move from like, or how do we prevent or mitigate the risk of these projects stalling? I think it starts with, just reframing, meaning that, pilots usually focus on testing a model against a narrow use case, which is fine, but it rarely proves, scalable business value. I think executives need to shift the question from, can the model work to can the pipeline deliver trusted inputs across various business unit workflows? And if you prove that out, again, not a narrow use case, I think that allows you to be able to scale. And I think when leaders realize that the success of AI isn't about one pilot, but about scalable, repeatable data readiness, I think the mindset shifts. The other part is board readiness. Boards don't care about pilots. They care about return on investment, which comes through the language of compliance risk, advancing the company mission, time to value. That's board speak. And if you can show that cleaning document pipelines reduces rework, improves accuracy, de-risks audits, I think then you start to build confidence at the top. And that's, when projects are funded, and that's when they move from pilot to production.
Definitely. And knowing how to kind of translate that complex technology into real business outcomes is such a skill, and so key in these instances. I'm conscious we've got about 5 minutes or so left, so I'm going to post our final poll for you guys in our audience, and it's really just to follow up if you guys are interested, and your organization would benefit from an executive AI readiness review, then do please put yes, and we will be able to get back to you with that. And I'm going to hand it over to Anthony now. Anthony, let's get practical. If you had to pick one workflow step to prioritize, which would deliver the fastest time to value?
Yeah, so I think my answer is going to be fairly predictable. Not only is it predictable based on what you heard from Chris and others, but also in your polling responses as well. One of your primary concerns, at least in a poll, was messy and unstructured content. Another was around file inconsistencies, PDF, etc. So I would take a look at where that noise actually starts, and that is at the file ingestion phase. So if your documents aren't clean, if they aren't consistent, if they aren't compliant, the likelihood of success around your analytics, around the business intelligence, around your line of business integrations, your human in the loop involvement, all suffer. So getting to that point where you have reliable inputs will absolutely improve the best ROI, and you'll have the time to value the quickest out of anything I've discovered so far.
Definitely. And I think I've seen a lot of thumbs up being sent to you over there, so our audience seem to agree. Brilliant. Now, I always like to make sure, we are able to give some practical advice to our audience. So I'd love to just, go to each one of you. I'd love to know, Chris, what's one action you'd advise executives to take tomorrow to improve their IDP?
To improve their IDP, I would
Not to improve the IDP, but to get started in this topic.
Yeah. I would say, staying with along the line of practicality, I would take inventory of your documents. I know that sounds crazy, but literally quantify what percentage, and it can be directionally correct, not precisely wrong, but literally quantify what percentage of your critical documents are AI ready today. Don't guess, actually give it a good go. That one action, I think, will create clarity. If the number is low, you immediately know why your current AI programs are stalling, and you know that any future AI investments are likely at risk. And I think once you know the gap of AI-ready document volume, you can then begin to smartly reallocate your AI budget to cover this upstream need that I think, have clearly articulated here today. So it's simple, it's actionable, and it sets the foundation for everything else. And executives love tangible action plans and smart reallocation of resources and capital that support your larger business strategy. I think it's a low effort, high impact initiative that accomplishes a lot of what's needed to, again, move from these stalled projects into full production.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you, Chris. And Vaibhav, what's one benchmark that the audience should remember?
Yeah, so again, I think, Sally, we talked about a couple of benchmarks, but again, that 50-55% thing. But one thing, which I'll say associated with that is, there's a lot of hype today, around AI. So it's really, and we also see a lot of AI washing in the market today, right? So I would say stay away from the hype. While AI is really dominating the enterprise mindshare today, I would say, the real investment which needs to happen, especially in the early stages, should be, in building these strong data or document pipelines. Even if you look at, the cutting edge technologies like agentic AI, I think the true value is going to come from how deeply your agents can understand and act on the contextual data. So if you're not building that foundation, you are, just trying to build your AI castles on quicksand, right? So that's what I would leave it at. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. And Anthony, last but not least, what's one practical step practitioners can start with to move beyond IDP?
Yeah, well, first I had an answer and Chris took it. So I'm going to go to my plan B, which is talk about the human involvement part here. So one of the things that we hear regularly, and I believe is a blind spot, not only for our customers, but the industry as a whole, is that most users feel like they're working for IDP or AI. They're like just checking errors or failures. Here's a picture of the image on the left, and they got metadata on the right. Is it yes or correct, yes or no? And that kind of really removes the simplicity of actually getting to an end result that's got a greater AI outcome, but it's also not fun to work with. All right, so I think we need to get to a point where AI is augmenting and assisting people, and the experiences that they see reflect that. So instead of saying yes or no, it's the ability to chat and learn from a document, to understand the context, to help improve the AI outcome so that they don't have to have this experience later on down the road. So I think as we're, as an organization, trying to deploy, and as Adlib is trying to build solutions, we need to get a better handle on the end user experience and the human element of how we're adopting and deploying AI in our environments.
Brilliant. Now, I'll take a couple of questions very quickly before we close out. Mike has asked, and Chris, I'll direct this question to you. Mike has asked, how can lower level managers shape or structure the conversation with execs that explains the need for clean, reliable data? So they have an exec who thinks the LLM will solve content issues.
Yeah, so I'm a proponent of what's in it for the audience. So knowing like what their top initiatives are, and I guarantee you like high quality data to improve business decisions and business velocity is towards the top of that. So it becomes very easy to take your taxonomy around core IDP, like that vocabulary, and then translate it into their speak. And I think that's when you begin to sort of like get the meetings on the calendar and you start to get time and space to actually have quality conversations. So not forcing your agenda, but understanding their priorities and what they will back, like put their political capital on the line. That's how I've seen this best play out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you have Adlib have loads of great case studies on the benefits and on the results on the website. I've had a look. So yeah, you can always have a look there, Mike, as well. And we've got some interesting case studies coming right up after this on IDP's impact in different industries, different processes. There's some really, really good examples that you can look into. And our last question has come through from Hossam, and Hossam's asking, what is the best model to clean data before using or applying AI? Does anyone feel comfortable answering that?
Sure, I can take that.
Thank you.
So the answer really depends on the content within the document itself. So there's various techniques that you can use. So sometimes you just need a PDF with, that's text searchable. Sometimes the model benefits from an actual image of the document and the OCR layer separately. Sometimes you actually can decompose the document. So let's say there's a text-heavy component, a table, a chart, and an embedded picture. Taking each of those individual objects separately and having a task that's focused on those individual objects with the appropriate prompts gets you a better result. So I'm not saying that you have to spend considerable time training your systems, but it's really, once again, understanding the content that's within your documents, what's important to extract from those individual objects, and using the best tools at your disposal to get to them. And lastly, I would say is, just a blind spot I've seen is some customers elect to use one AI or large language model technology. And there's really no one size fits all approach for these complex documents. So having the flexibility to choose and pivot amongst many models, even within the same use case or workflow, is very helpful in getting to a better result. So I guess the end of the day is just be flexible and don't lock yourself in.
Brilliant. Well, I could talk to you about this all day, but sadly, that's all we've got time for. So thank you so much, Chris, Anthony, and Vaibhav, for taking the time to put together that fantastic presentation. As I said at the beginning, if you click on the resources tab at the bottom, the slides are in there within the document section. And I've also put a link in the resource center again to a webinar that we are running with Adlib. So you can catch us there, and that's on AI that passes inspections, document first RAG for highly regulated industries. So some really, really interesting information in there. We're going to be starting our next session in 5 minutes time, and that's a case study with Takeda. Peter Gallick, who is their Global Head of Automation, AI and Innovation, will be talking about transforming sick leave submissions with AI-powered IDP. So I will see all of you over there very shortly. Thank you once again to our speakers.